Welcome to New England Ski Journal's Basecamp Podcast, presented by Country Ski and Sport. Ski season is here, and it's time to gear up at Country Ski and Sport. Shop now for your best preseason deals at any of their 3 locations in Hanson, Quincy, and Westwood, Mass. Or shop online at countryski.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome into the New England Ski Journal's Basecamp Podcast. I'm Eric Wilbur. I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Specian, who is here in studio. Mike, how are you?
Doing awesome, Eric.
Great.
You know what? The whole country has been getting snow, finally.
It's been awesome. We went through that drought. January is different this year, or was different this year. We usually have the warming trend of January, and this year it was kind of, it was a little wet here and there, but by middle of the month, some systems started to change. I skied great powder up at Sugarloaf, great powder day at Wachusett earlier in the month of January. So yeah, it's been snowing. We've recovered very well from the doldrums we had in late December.
Yes.
So now I'd like to say
Christmas is behind us, thank goodness.
Yes.
That's a good thing. When I look, I'm sure everybody's starting to plan their Western trips or have them planned. 4 weeks ago, it was really suspect in Utah, in Colorado.
No longer.
Yeah, no longer. I mean, there is snow. I've been getting, stuff from Steamboat, friends out there just sending me, face shots left and right. And I'm going, I need to go.
It's funny. I got, I think I told you this. I have a treadmill at my house, and I bought a TV over the summer just to kind of, watch some sports scores or whatnot as I'm running. And I got into watching Wimbledon over the summer, and more recently Australian Open. But what I've really been doing is going onto YouTube and watching everyone ski these powder stashes out in Utah and recording it. And it's been a fantastic way to get through 5 miles because you're just getting really fired up. So it's been great. And it's been, I've been lucky enough that it's been a pretty productive winter so far. I know you haven't been lucky enough to get out there that much, but from what I've been out there, it's been fun. And it's looking like it's going to be a nice, healthy February into March, April, May. And then, we'll go from there.
Yeah, springtime at this point. Let's keep this thing rolling. Stay above or below freezing. I almost said above freezing, and let these storms roll in with snow. And knock on wood, we're going to have a great spring skiing, and I'm going to be out there with you.
Absolutely. I do have to relay one story from at Wachusett earlier first weekend in January is what it was. The storm we had produced 18 inches of powder in Wachusett. And I've heard people complaining about this, but I've never actually tangibly had one on a lift with me. And so it was a little disturbing. We had someone join us on the lift who, on her backpack, had a Bluetooth speaker. Now, mind you, this is a Bluetooth speaker on her backpack that is blaring music that the rest of the chairlift can hear, that the rest of the line can hear, that the rest of the slope can hear. And I'm just wondering, where are the earphones? Where are the earbuds? Why can't we do this the way we've always done this? If you want to listen to music while you're skiing, fine by me. Just put buds in your helmet and have a go at it. Why do I have to listen to Nicki Minaj through your entire run when all I want to do is talk to my kids about what they want for lunch? And it really got me a little bit sort of on the old man ladder of ranting and railing about this. I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone because on a subsequent chairlift with someone on another run the next day, I heard someone talking about, I've got to get my new Bluetooth speaker. And her boyfriend or whoever it was said, and you should also put on the headphones. So I know that I'm not the only person, and obviously it's causing some strife within some relationships. But can we please agree that along with the please take off your backpacks when you're getting on the chairlift, no Bluetooth speakers. No, we don't want them because your music is your music. It's not my music. I love partying. I love hanging out with you. I love hanging out and listening to what you may have going on in those earbuds. But I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to listen to it at full volume. That's it. Buy some earphones.
Well,
Rant over.
Well, you just got me going, man. Okay. I'm totally against earphones.
Because of
skiing,
the inability to hear.
The inability to hear.
What if it is fed in through the helmet, so it's not as
You're still
restrictive?
people aren't paying attention to what's going on. It's distracted driving, in my opinion. Okay. And number two is when you get on a lift, part of getting on a double with somebody that you've never met is the conversation.
Sure.
Part of getting on a quad is the conversation. And, you know, it's like sitting on the front porch. Some of my best conversations, some of the coolest people I've ever met have been on ski lifts. And I'm just completely against riding with music on the slopes or even on my bike. I won't do it. You've got to be alert. And nature is one cool spot. If you sit there and listen, there's a lot of cool things going on.
Yeah, I used to be headphones all the time, and just the way the music would drive me through the mountain, there's nothing like it. But I totally agree with you. Like every time I did it, I felt guilty, and it would always be on low because you want to be aware. You don't want to be that person that's preaching awareness and be the idiot who's not doing anything but that. Sure. So yeah, I miss not having that music, but doesn't mean I'm going to strap a Bluetooth to my waist and make you listen to Fish from 1995. It's not going to happen, although it would be great.
Hey, you know what? It might enlighten some people, a little Fish.
It would.
But let me ask you this. We got some cold weather, finally. I mean, we were warm as could be, and all of a sudden, late January turned cold, or mid-January, I should say.
Yeah.
So, I have to ask you this. You haven't gotten my heated socks yet.
No,
They're going to be a game changer. But how? You know, we talked about our Hestras that Hestra so graciously sent us. How were your hands on those cold days?
Well, first of all, I do want to go back during the weekend at Sugarloaf over MLK weekend. My big toes were so cold that all I could think of was Mike's heated socks and why I didn't have them. It's just my big toe. It's not the rest of the toes, just the big toes. But even so, yes, I would have liked the socks. But the Hestras are just phenomenal. In fact, I was in the ski shop at the base on my way out after skiing the morning on Monday, and there's this woman who is in desperate need of gloves. And she's like, I just need something warm. Please give me something warm. And behind the cash register is just a wall of Hestras. And I walked by with my pair and I looked at her and I said, you cannot go wrong. Because they are truly the best glove I've ever worn. By far, another little story to kind of give you a glimpse into the Eric Wilbur life of letting his equipment run too old. My 13-year-old son was so excited about these Hestras because it meant he was going to get my hand-me-down gloves, a dependable pair of gloves that have been with me for probably about 9 years. So when we went skiing at Wachusett a few weeks ago, he put them on. That was step one. Step two was he asked for some, the little hand warmers to pop in there at some point. And step three was, Dad, I have to go in because my hands are so cold I can no longer ski. And this was only about 2 hours. I gave him my Hestras and we continued to ski the rest of the day. But I put on those old gloves, which up until March was decent enough for me, and I could understand his pain. Like, why was he suffering through this? It made me again realize that you got to take assessment of why are you doing it if it's bringing you discomfort. One more little tale. I'm on the lift at Sugarloaf, and this woman is adjusting a dial on her glove like this. And now back in the 80s, I had these sort of like temperature gloves that would tell you like 1 to 10 how cold it was. This was actually, she was adjusting the heat in her gloves. She's like, yeah, I just need a little bit. And I think it was her son sort of said, you're really enjoying those, aren't you? And she was like, well, she was almost embarrassed to say that she enjoyed them, right? And he said to her something very simple. If it brings you more enjoyment, it makes it more uncomfortable, then it's worth the purchase. And I looked at him and I nodded and I said, You sound just like Mike Speeson.
You know what? We drive cars with power steering and power brakes now. Why would you not? Why would you not make your skiing experience? We don't get enough days on the hill. Why would you not want
one more little thing of confession from the Wilbur? The Wilbur, whatever you want to call it here, book of lies, or not book of lies, the book of
I'm going to say the book of, come on, get with today.
Yes, okay. Kristen Ulmer we had on last week, and she was talking about skiing in jeans and how she grew up, and she was probably about 2021 skiing in jeans, and I associate with that 100%. When I went to Vermont in 1992 as a freshman. My first day, I remember skiing Toll Road, one of my first days, in jeans, in rear entry boots, and in probably some shell jacket that had no lining. And the people I were with, one of them still my best friends, I just can only imagine them looking and shaking their head in horror at what they had to ski with on this mountain and in this, it was not good. It was not good. So I think a little bit of that is still living inside me.
I don't know.
I know.
But, we're talking about cold. We're talking about great gloves, heated socks. One of the coldest places I've ever skied?
Jay Peak.
Well, Jay Peak, I've had some pretty cold days. Sugarloaf, yeah, I've had some really cold days. No, Stowe.
Yes, of course.
Because we have Stowe on. That's a cold spot. That's where having all of these creature comforts that actually enhance your skiing experience really stands out.
It does.
I mean,
100%. Like I, as soon as I stepped on the mountain at Stowe in jeans with a little bit of duo fold underneath there, I felt, something wasn't right. Like I had just jumped into a different portal where skiing was completely different and it was going to treat me a different way. 100%. I mean, Stowe has that pull. Stowe has that power that it just is, there's something about it, man. There really is.
Well, Stowe has a history too.
Yep.
A history. First off, it's one of the iconic ski towns of New England. I mean, when you drive into Stowe, you just look and you say, this is Vermont.
Yep.
Okay. But we are talking about something today about 90 years of a ski patrol.
Yeah, the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol, 90 years old in 2024. It's actually older than Stowe Mountain Resort itself. So we're going to be celebrating that anniversary with a couple integral people. Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol Director Craig Fisher is going to be joining us, and longtime patroller and Stowe historian Brian Lindner, who I was lucky to speak to, probably 13, 14 years ago. And he remains one of my favorite sort of phone call interviews that I'll kind of harken back to time and time, just because it was so much fun to listen to him tell these stories that he's told, how many hundreds of times and written about hundreds of times, and the excitement that he told these things with, that always lived with me. So I'm excited to have him back on the show and to discuss some Stowe history, which we will do about the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol 90th anniversary right after this.
Looking for expert ski, snowboard, and boot fitting advice? Stop into one of Country Ski and Sport's 3 locations in Quincy, Westwood, or Hanson, Mass. As a third-generation family business, Country Ski has provided Boston area skiers with the best service and discounts in the area for over 50 years. Whether you are brand new to the sport or a seasoned veteran, Country Ski has the equipment and accessories for all ability levels. Don't forget to ask about their popular season lease program, which helps families eliminate the growing pains of purchasing new equipment every year as kids grow. And don't forget, any child 18 years or younger receives a free season pass to Saddleback Mountain with each lease from Country Ski. Visit countryski.com for all the latest information or to shop online.
The Button Ski Hanger is a patented ski storage fixture that safely stores alpine skis regardless of length, width, or shape. This means that your fat powder skis can now be stored next to your narrower carving skis, your race skis, and your kid skis. For more information, visit their website, buttonskirack.com. The button ski hanger is also available for purchase at Amazon.com. So make your purchase today. The button ski hanger is simply better for your skis.
At 4,237 feet, Sugarloaf is one of the largest ski areas in the East and second highest peak in the state of Maine, trailing only Mount Katahdin. Boasting over 1,300 acres of open terrain and a vertical drop of nearly 3,000 feet, Sugarloaf offers a wide variety of terrain for all ability levels. A historic winter is ahead with the debut of West Mountain. It's the largest terrain expansion in the Northeast since the late 1970s, adding 12 new beginner and intermediate trails, 88,000 feet of snowmaking pipe, and 246 HKD snowmaking guns. Sugarloaf is a destination not to be missed. Stay slopeside and plan your trip today at sugarloaf.com. All right, welcome back to the program. Joining us on the Zoom line today, we're pleased to welcome Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol Director Craig Fisher and longtime patroller and Stowe historian Brian Lindner to talk about the 90th anniversary of the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol. And here's a little bit of trivia. If you visit Ski Patrol headquarters in the Mansfield Base Lodge, you'll be standing in Brian's childhood bedroom. Brian, can you tell us a little bit about the unique way that you grew up?
Yeah, sure. So that it was called the State Shelter in its day. It was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps, and we are located in the Mount Mansfield State Forest, where my father was the ranger for 20 years. And when I was growing up, the ranger lived in the base lodge. So that's where I grew up. And what is today the patrol room, as you said, was my bedroom as a child.
That is absolutely amazing. What a great spot to grow up at, one of the iconic spots for skiing in New England. And first and foremost, we want to say congratulations. 90 years, is it?
It is.
That is just plain crazy.
You know, the great Dave Irons, former ski patroller, journalist, he passed away over the fall. He told me in 2011, skiers are a lot more likely to get hurt driving to the mountain than they will be on the hill. Skiing is a relatively safe sport. Ski areas are pushing that 60 million visitor mark. If there's a total of 50 deaths or catastrophic injuries, that's 1 in a million. Craig, I think the answer is obvious, but how much does the Ski Patrol contribute to that safety of skiing?
Yeah, I mean, the real purpose of the ski patrols around the country and really anywhere on the planet is to kind of help mitigate risk. We know that skiing is inherently a risky sport, right? I mean, people are on the side of mountains, they're on skis and snowboards, traveling at speed down, you're out in the woods, doing all that stuff. So from the patrol perspective, it's really about identifying the hazards and the risks that are out on the mountains, to mark them accordingly, to inform the skiing and riding public about what they should expect, and really sort of work that educational piece, between the padding and the signing that we do, the informational banners talking about slow zones and different stuff like that based on trail merges at the intersections, really all of those things over the years. The whole program has really evolved, to kind of what you see today, where there's a lot more signage out there than there used to be. But as we bring more new folks into the industry, which is really what we're trying to do. I mean, as a whole, the ski industry has been pretty flat for many decades, with the number of people that ski and ride. So for the survival of our industry, it's really important that we try to bring more families and new individuals who have never tried winter sports before, get them into it. And, we need to help them understand what sort of risks and whatnot they're going to be encountering out there. And so that's really what we try to focus on.
Well, the ski patrols in New England have done an incredible job of keeping us safe, giving us a good quality of experience. Brian, can you tell the audience a bit about who Minnie Dole is and what prompted him to advocate for skiers' safety?
Yeah, Minnie Dole, Seaman Dole was his name. He was an insurance executive from Connecticut who had a tremendous interest in skiing. and in promoting skiing. And in 1936, Minnie Dole got injured here at Stowe on the toll road, as a matter of fact, and had to be rescued. And he realized at that point the inherent dangers in the sport of skiing, and became very interested in it. And when he was asked to head a committee studying ski injuries for the Eastern Amateur Ski Association, I believe it was, he headed that committee and really became America's expert on skiing injuries very early in the history of this sport. And taking it further, Minnie later became a member of the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol here, and used our model to design the National Ski Patrol system. So NSP, National Ski Patrol, is actually based on the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol. And then Minnie later used the same model to design and create the 10th Mountain Division, America's ski troops in World War II. So he is crucial to ski patrolling and actually to military history in America.
Amazing. And then Frank Griffin, Abner Coleman, Roland Palermo, these are names that if you've even spent a few days in Stowe, they're synonymous with the history in the town, dating back to the creation of the ski patrol. Can you give us a little background on how the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol began in 1934?
Yeah, well, the water is a little bit muddy, and it's taken me decades literally to find old documents and sort through this. But to the best of my knowledge, somebody got injured very late in the day in the darkness on the toll road and had to be rescued in the winter of 1933-34, probably in the fall of 33. That person's name has been lost to history, but we do know the two folks that rescued him, Frank Griffin being one of them. And they hiked up, once they got word of the injury, they hiked up the toll road by kerosene lantern, towing along an old piece of corrugated roofing tin that they used as a toboggan, and they brought this person down the mountain. And it was at that point that all the early advocates here at Stowe, including the list that you just named, plus Bill Mason and others, said, if we're going to promote skiing here at Mount Mansfield and Stowe, we need to do something about safety and rescuing people that do get injured. So that became the impetus for on January 8th, 1934, when they incorporated the Mount Mansfield Ski Club to promote skiing here, that they included the language that created the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol. So it was that injury that made everybody realize we need to create a patrol, and that's what they did on January 8th, 1934.
1934. Wow. Such a history. Craig, you have a little history there. You started skiing Stowe in junior high and joined the ski patrol there in 96. Tell us a little bit, what made you go that way?
So a little incorrect on that. So I skied here one day in junior high.
That counts as skiing.
Yeah. So I was
a press release, Craig, though. So it's a very important day.
Yeah, it was. So I came here in junior high as a member of a race club at one of the other resorts over in the Northeast Kingdom, and I skied here. My parents actually grew up skiing here. They both grew up in Montpelier. So I skied here that one day. Regrettably, I never actually had skied Stowe prior or since until I moved here in the fall of 1995. And I came into town. I started skiing here that year, really kind of fell in love with the resort and the mountain and the terrain. The following summer, summer of 96, I actually moved into an apartment next door to a house full of ski patrollers. And I got to know them that summer, and they were like, well, you ought to join. And as such, I tried out that fall. I got my medical certifications, and that winter of 96, 97 was my rookie year here on the patrol. And, in one manner or another, I've been involved with the patrol ever since.
That's great. And now the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol, it's unique because it's older than the resort itself. Brian, can you describe the unique nature of that club's relationship with whoever has owned Stowe in the past?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The Mount Mansfield Ski Club was a group of very early ski enthusiasts here in central Vermont that wanted to promote skiing, particularly on Mount Mansfield. And they're the ones that incorporated the club. And their goal was to promote skiing, as I said, on Mount Mansfield and in Stowe, create the ski patrol. And they, over the years, have done a number of things before there was really a ski resort. Like they got Sepp Rusch to come here from Austria to create a ski school here at Stowe. And over the years, the MMSC, the club, has evolved to the point where today its goal is they run a ski academy, and we're trying to produce Olympic world-class ski racers here at Stowe. Over the decades, the club has been supported in numerous ways by the owners of Stowe Mountain Resort, and it's always been just a fantastic relationship. When they produce big racers in the ski club, Stowe Mountain Resort traditionally gets some credit for that. Billy Kidd of Stowe, for example, is a prime example.
Pretty good example with a little history there in Billy the Kid. So we've all skied Perry Merrill. I mean, I'm just learning something in this whole conversation here after skiing Stowe probably 50 times in my life. Perry Merrill, who was he, and what was his connection to the hill?
Well, Perry was, I actually knew him as an acquaintance because he was my father's boss. He actually hired my dad to be the ranger here. Perry Merrill was a forestry student, a forestry graduate. He had studied in Scandinavia and saw what the Scandinavians were doing with their hillsides and ski trails. And when he came back to America, he became the commissioner of forestry here in Vermont, and decided to make it his mission to start promoting skiing as he had seen in Scandinavia on Vermont mountains. And in particular, he looked at Mount Mansfield and his friend, a guy named Charlie Lord, who was an engineer and a surveyor that had been laid off by the highway department in Vermont during the Depression. And he looked at Charlie to help design a trail or trails here on Mount Mansfield. And then you have the creation of the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, by President Roosevelt during the Depression. Charlie Lord was a supervisor in the CCC. His boss was Al Gottlieb from Stowe, who wanted to promote skiing in the Stowe area. And the whole thing kind of gelled together with Perry Merrill creating these ideas for projects that the CCC could undertake. And one of them was having the CCC under Charlie Lord cut the Bruce Trail on Mount Mansfield. They started November 1, 1933. They cut throughout the winter. They finished at February 1st, 1934. And that became the first purpose-built ski trail in the state of Vermont, right here on Mount Mansfield.
Wow.
Craig, what were some of the different requirements to joining the ski patrol? Like, I know there's the toboggan test. You know, what sorts of things over the years would you say do you still require now versus what they did, maybe 75 years ago?
I think the general requirements are very similar. Since the inception in 34, the requirement for back then, it was basic first aid. Since then, the medical training has evolved. We are a licensed first responder service for the state of Vermont here. We practice to an advanced EMT level. So our basic requirement is for all paid patrollers to have a basic EMS certification. We're very fortunate to have several advanced EMTs. We also have some paramedics, as well as some of our doctor medical advisors. Our volunteer program is based more on the National Ski Patrol model of the OEC, which is the Outdoor Emergency Care program that the NSP teaches specifically for ski patrols. Basically as the technology and equipment has improved and evolved, we have always tried to be on the cutting edge of that. Whether it's some of the devices that we're able to transport out onto the hill for life-saving purposes, or some of the advanced equipment that we have in our base areas. And really, I would say that holds true for all the patrols throughout the country. Is they're always interested as protocols change within the state EMS systems. There's always that evolution of these emergency systems that we follow.
Does that mean you have Patrollers National Registry EMS?
Yes. Yep. So every one of our EMTs or above are all part of the National Registry, and then you also get a state certification as well.
Gotcha. Well, I'm a retired fire EMS, so that's why I asked that question.
Yep.
How many patrollers do you have on the hill at any given time, or in the coffer?
Yeah, right now we have approximately 48 or so full-time and part-time paid patrollers. We also have about 16 or 18 volunteers. Daily staffing, just sort of ebbs and flows throughout the season based on how busy we are, what time of the year it is. Certainly during the holidays and the weekends, we have additional patrollers on the hill. Some of the midweek times, especially during sort of the January lull after MLK, we see sort of a natural dip in the skier visits year over year. So we'll just sort of model that staffing based on what we feel our needs are.
I will say I felt for some of your staff on day 2 of the season when there was one way down, and I thought it was glorious. But you could see people that were not, they were expecting the WROD, and they got prime spring conditions on the second day. And you could tell the ski patrol was a little bit like up in arms, like, what do we do with this one? What do we do with this one? So kudos to them for handling that situation.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than spring conditions and fall legs. Really that need to sort of ski yourself into shape throughout the early season is always an imperative piece. And, the last several years we've been challenged with having that warmer weather pattern at the start of the season. Our snowmaking team does the best they can. We need Mother Nature to provide cold enough temperatures to be able to make the snow. And then we will certainly do everything we can. But yeah, the last couple of years, out of the gates, it's been a little limited on the total amount of terrain we've been able to offer our guests. Well,
I loved it, and it was tremendous for me, but I felt for the patrollers who were trying to deal with the clientele. Camaraderie on a ski patrol team. How important is that included with, your technical training?
Yeah, it's a critical piece. Any service that works this closely together, basically for 150 days straight, we're open 7 days a week. Majority of our staff are seasonal, but really it becomes a bit of a family environment. I mean, you really get to know these individuals well. I'm pleased to say that, the majority of the patrollers, they choose to spend time with each other outside of work. They raise their families with each other's kids. It really just creates this sense of belonging to the organization, and it's a very powerful thing.
It's very, very similar to the fire service all the way around.
Sure.
So, Brian, question for you. People go off the backside of Mansfield, and you guys have to perform stuff that is really outside your day in, day out routine. How many times have you seen that happen, and how do you deal with it?
Well, it happens maybe once or twice a winter, I would say, on average. It's been going on since the 1930s. It's nothing new. Our first responsibility, obviously, is to here in the resort. However, many members of the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol are also on backcountry and technical rescue teams. So if we can assist, we always do. And generally, it's a lost hiker, or a lost skier. And we'll dispatch patrollers that are familiar with that area of the mountain to go out and start looking for them. And then we team up with whichever local team, normally Stone Mountain Rescue, that's actually handling the official search in itself.
So you work within a chain of command to some degree or another?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we will often, we get folks that kind of pop off the perimeter trails and get lost relatively close to the resort. That happens on a regular basis, kind of throughout the winter, as soon as the snowpack allows. And we will often be able to directly affect those rescues ourselves. We actually had a couple, just last weekend. I think a lot of what Brian was referring to was, we'll have people that will use the resort to access the ridgeline of the resort and will, accidentally go down over the backside onto the Underhill side, or we'll get so far out that we're really not in a position to be able to affect that. So as Brian mentioned, we do have members of our team that are involved in those backcountry rescue teams. They will often take the point on that. We will activate those other municipal systems, and we will offer whatever support we can.
Yeah, you just answered my question, actually. I was wondering how you prompt that from happening from the get-go, so thank you.
Well, a question for you here. We see it out west with, gated off side country, Jackson Hole or wherever. Does Stowe ever struggle with that part of it? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've come off the gondola and went up to the chin. I mean, I can't tell you. It's a zillion.
Yeah.
How do you control who's in those situations?
Being the guests or the staff?
The guests.
Yeah, it's limited in what we can control. So we do have informational signage at the primary points where people access the side country from the resort. We try to offer some level of education, but really at the end of the day, once enough people go out one of those traverses, the folks that aren't really sure where they're going, they just tend to follow those tracks. That is what often leads to the nearby rescues that we get just outside of our boundaries. But to that point, that is when people start to get out farther and farther and farther out of our zone. And once they get to a certain point, if it's not something that we can sort of mitigate rapidly on our own, that's when we need to incorporate the other municipal services.
Sure.
Well, I almost forgot to show you that I'm wearing my Sun Valley Snow Dogs sweatshirt here from the Sun Valley Ski Patrol, which I'm very comfortable sweatshirt. And I love it. I wore it in tribute for the Ski Patrol, but I also have a question for it because, you don't see the Snow Dogs anymore, right? They're not wandering around anywhere. I wonder if there's any traditions that are long held in that Ski Patrol building that are, that root back from 1934.
Well, there might be a few, but a lot of those we don't really talk about anymore. It's again, the general mindset of the organization, I think, is still very similar. I mean, you have a group of individuals who choose to come to this resort every year over year. Our most tenured patroller right now, I believe, is on his 58th season as a member of this organization.
Wow.
And he doesn't do it because he has to. He does it because he wants to. And really, it's that camaraderie, and it's that being a member of the team that just draws people back year over year. And again, we have one of our volunteers lives down in Delaware, and he comes up for blocks of time. We had a longtime patroller that lived locally that moved down to Alabama, and he continued to patrol for almost 10 years after he moved down to Alabama with his wife, because he just didn't want to stop doing it. And when you have a room full of people like that, you just know that it's going to be a great day.
Well, with that being said, because we're seeing it in the ski instructor world as well, how do you recruit new people into it? Because, so many of us are aging out of the business. What are you doing out there, Craig, to bring new people at this point into the Ski Patrol?
Yeah, every year we have our recruitment cycle that happens through the summer and fall. We will often get people asking. They'll pop in throughout the winter, and they'll be inquiring about what does it take to be a ski patroller, and how can I do this. We get a lot of kids that are coming up through the college years. A lot of pre-med students are interested in doing stuff like this. And, as well, we have folks that just are kind of going through a life change and just looking for a different opportunity, a different direction. So we vet them through the process. I mean, obviously, we need folks who are strong skiers and riders. You don't have to be technically flawless, like more of the things you're looking for on the ski school side of things. But we need you to be a strong skier or rider. You need to be able to work well out in the elements. You need to be able to work well with others. You need to be willing to be part of a team. We have some very dynamic situations that we get involved in on some of our medical calls, and really those are bonding moments, between the individuals that are involved in those. So we, this year we actually started a pilot program of teaching a medical class in-house, because, up until this point, we sort of required folks that already had medical certifications. And, an EMT license is about $1,000 to take an EMT course. And that's a big chunk of change for someone who thinks they might want to try something. So what we came up with this past summer was to have one of our members, who is also a training officer at our local EMS service here in Stowe, actually created and taught an EMR program for our first year patrollers this year. And we're kind of getting through it. We're working out some of the bugs, but basically what that did was that offered us the opportunity to expand on our hiring pool and be able to say, well, this individual, they think they want to be a patroller. They don't really have a medical background thus far, but they have a love of the outdoors. And so we're going to be able to inexpensively help them get a medical certification. They're going to get to try patrolling. And then if they get through the first 2-year cycle of their license and they want to continue patrolling, then at that time we would have them move up into the EMT basic certification that historically has sort of been our minimum requirement.
All right. Well, Craig and Brian, I want to thank both of you for joining us, celebrating 90 years of Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol. If you go to Stowe's YouTube channel, there's a documentary that you're both in, celebrating the anniversary. Part 1's out. Is part 2 coming out anytime soon, or have I missed it?
Yeah, I've seen the preview for the second one. It is getting ready to be released. I'm not sure of the exact timeline on that, but that one's really focusing more on just historical facts, as well as just the role that women have played in the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol really since the beginning. And that's something we're very proud of as well.
By all means, I mean, the ski industry has been a male-dominated sport overall, but to see women involved at that level, and they are honestly some of the most passionate caregivers out there, which is what you want. Well, I've got a couple personal questions here before we go anywhere. I want to know from both of you, Craig, you probably never get to take the jacket off, but if you take that jacket off on a 2-foot powder day and you get to put on your civilian jacket, where are you going to go ski? What's your run?
Yeah, historically, my favorite run has been lift line, and lift line has gotten the better of me a couple of times over the years. So I have a rule where I do not ski lift line first run of the day, because I've had significant injuries on lift line on the first run of the day. Over the years. Lookout has always been one of my favorites, and really over the last 10 years or so, Hayride has really started to come into its own for me. So I depending on the day and certain days, certain conditions, that certain trails were groomed early, others were groomed later. So when you have the inside track on the grooming plan, you sort of understand where the ebbs and flows are that you can kind of make your way down through and find some of the best snow on any given day.
Sure. What about you? What about you, Brian? What's, that light cold snow that we get in northern Vermont, and you've got 1.5 feet of new? Where are you headed?
Well, if it's 1.5 feet of new snow, I'm going to go over whatever they groomed the night before.
There you go.
Just beautiful fresh powder on a groomed surface. I'll go anywhere that happens.
That sounds delightful, but so does everything else. Brian Lindner and Craig Fisher. Craig, I thank you very much for joining us on the program. It's been a delight to have you both here. Craig, I'm actually fascinated the way you categorize hayride, because I skied Stowe during my college years, but never really addressed hayride that much. And over the past 10, 15 years, that's been my go-to, like go to hayride. So maybe it's like, maybe it's made for older bones or something. I don't know, but it's a delight. Brian and Craig, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much.
We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. This is the year to visit the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. With over 450 inches of annual snowfall, 4,000 vertical feet of continuous fall line skiing, a world-renowned ski school, and terrain for everyone, the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort is perfect for your next ski trip with friends or family. Off the slopes, Jackson Hole offers adventure and relaxation. Visit Yellowstone or Grand Teton National Parks. See elk, moose, and bison roaming in their natural habitats, or relax in a hot spring or at a spa. No more excuses. This is the year to go visit Jackson Hole. Go to jacksonhole.com for more information.
Hestra knows hands. For over 80 years, Hestra has been producing the highest quality, warmest gloves you can own. Crafted with durable, form-fitting leathers, they are made with the end user in mind. Don't let cold hands end a great day of skiing or snowboarding early. With hundreds of different options, you'll find a Hestra glove that fits your needs. Check out Hestra Gloves at hestragloves.com. That's HESTRAGLOVES.com. Or at your local ski shop or wherever Hestra Gloves are sold. Hestra Gloves, taking care of your hands since 1936.
Eric, Stowe is such an amazing place. It's one of the best hills in New England, and to know that the history of how it was created, the ski patrol, and listening to Brian tell us about that history was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a ski writer, so ski history is part of, the fascination for getting into this work in the first place. So when you recognize the power and the direct lineage of the Mount Mansfield Ski Patrol to the 10th Mountain Division, and understand the sort of strong skiing history that we live in here in New England, it's funny because it's East Coast, East Coast, Ice Coast, and people like to make fun of the East Coast. But in many, many ways, you look at what we've delivered in terms of ski patrol and medication, and in terms of athletes, and East Coast is where it's at. It really is. And so to find that sort of history in a place like Stowe, where it's so rich, and to have them celebrate it, I think is particularly, I want to say thankful, but I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that Stowe recognizes this, and especially what it has in Brian, and the wealth of knowledge in him, to discuss this history that is so important to this mountain. And I think a lot of times it doesn't get at the, sort of the attention it should get, because we're, looking at other things, I think, with the town itself of Stowe.
Yeah. The history of New England as a whole, and Stowe in this particular situation, it has been a driving force for the country. I mean, from the ski trains into North Conway, from, the Europeans coming over and setting up, ski schools here to the Ski Patrol at Stowe. It has set the benchmark for what we know as the American ski industry. This was
a story I told in a recent story I wrote on Stowe, but it's probably best to tell here as well to kind of close it out and encompass Stowe in a certain way. I told you this a few weeks ago, that my wife and I were walking around the village, and there was a sign there that says, "Coming soon, Starbucks." Now, a Starbucks in downtown, Stowe Village just seems very out of place, and we know the history of McDonald's on Mountain Road and Vermonters' sort of long-time resistance to corporate America. I mean, you only have to read up on the Walmart situation to understand how strong that passion is. And, Stowe obviously is a place that's changed a lot in the past 10 years. And I remember a Stowe that was stuck in the 1970s and 70s decor and oranges and yellows and ashtrays and sunken living rooms. And, it was kind of kitschy and fun at the same time to dive into real skiing history. And so, change at Stowe has been pretty rampant over the past 10 years, to the point where sometimes you can't even recognize certain places. A lot of bed and breakfasts have gone out of business. Restaurants don't exist anymore. And, it's part progress and it's part, just a way of life. My final day in Stowe, the woman that was checking us out at the hotel, it was a hotel where my wife and I got married in 2002. Top-notch resort, which is, has some of the best views of Stowe. The woman that was checking us out looked at me and said, "I worked your wedding about 20 years ago, correct?" And I looked at her floored, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. She said, no. I remember it was downstairs. You had the big white cake and this and that. And I was just like, wow. I said, well, my wife is outside taking pictures right now. It's all good. She's like, well, I'm glad things have worked out for you. And it floored me, right? Because no matter how much Stowe changes, or no matter how much Vermont changes, or no matter how much we try to instill a certain tag on someone or something or whatever, you know what I'm trying to get at. There's always that something there, right? The reason why you fell in love with this place in the first place. And just by saying that to me, it was like everything that changed about Stowe came full circle. And Stowe's the same place. It's the same place it always was.
Well, there's been a lot of changes at Stowe, and you and I have had this conversation. The bottom line is the town of Stowe is still the town of Stowe, and the mountain is truly still the mountain.
Absolutely.
Okay? When you get up in there, and, it's amazing how the front four is really such an iconic, spot. And Craig said, lift line, national hayride, all of that right down off that quad. But it is, even when you're there in the summer, it is still one of the most beautiful spots. When I take a bike ride and ride through the notch on my road bike, I'm just awed. Yeah. on the painful climb as I'm looking around going, will it end? But it's such a beautiful location. And for the Stowe Ski Patrol to have a 90-year anniversary and basically set the tone for ski patrol across this country, hats off to you guys. Congratulations on 90 years. And we're, this podcast, Eric and I are glad to be celebrating with you.
Now we got to come back in 10 years, though, for the 100th anniversary, because that's going to be the big one, right?
Oh, my goodness. That's a long ways away, man.
Not as long as you think. Don't believe the hype. Michael, thank you very much for joining us.
Eric, that was great. Thank you, Craig and Brian and Stowe Ski Patrol, for all you do.
Absolutely. Congratulations. This was the New England Ski Journal's Basecamp Podcast. I am your host, New England Ski Journal editor Eric Wilbur. We will see you next time, and enjoy the skiing.
New England Ski Journal's Basecamp is a Seamans Media podcast. Seamans Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.